Good day, everyone. It's Kevin Alft, owner of Action Coach of Texas, Action Coach of DFW. We're here today with John Pryzwara. John is the owner of International Vacations Incorporated. And John is a serial entrepreneur, and we really appreciate John investing the time today to share with all of you his best practices, lessons learned over the decades of being a successful entrepreneur. So, John, thank you for sharing your insight, your wisdom, and please build us some runway on you and your businesses.
Okay. I'll start out with the history. After going off to college to A&M for 2 years, Uncle Sam came knocking on my door and said, well, we're fixing to draft you. So I went into the Army, served 2 years in the military police, kind of liked it. I had never even thought about that before. And this will all fit together as we go forward. So I came out, finished up my degree, joined the Dallas Police Department. Served on the Dallas Police Department for 4 years in patrol and then 3 years undercover as a detective in the Vice Division. And during the time in the Vice Division, I got picked to run a ski trip for the Vice Squad, and I had zero experience in it. I was just the one that they tapped and said, here, you organize it, we'll go. So we did. And our first ski trip was to Lake Tahoe. And then the next year we expanded out and put other patrol divisions and homicide and this guy in there and opened it to some other police departments. Third year, we actually expanded to the public and to the travel agency community as a wholesaler. From there, the business grew. We realized that ski as a 4 month out of the year business was not going to cut it. So we expanded our business into the Caribbean, into Europe, and we were in the total business of wholesaling those products. So in other words, we were the travel agent. We put it together, they would buy it from us, send their people. In 1987, we spread out more and entered what's called the air consolidation business. And most of you have never even heard of that. But it's for international air. We would go directly to the airlines and negotiate rates for their distressed inventory. And in 1990, that really took off to the point that we could do a seat to London $700 or $800 cheaper than the airlines with no restrictions on them, but we were at the mercy of their not selling those seats, so they used us kind of as a dump valve. That business was tremendous all the way up until about 2000. But meanwhile, in 1997, we went public on the NASDAQ with four other companies actually in the travel space: Cruises Only, Cruises Inc., 800 Fly Cheap, and Auto Europe. Bought 17 more companies, mostly in the cruise space. And at that time, the whole organization was basically the largest leisure outlet for the products that we sold. Obviously, with the cruise business, it was probably the heaviest contingent within our group. After 3 years, we sold the thing out to a company called Air Tours out of Great Britain. I wound up retiring, and that was 20-something years ago. I flunked retirement. Came back into the business after I served out my non-compete. And about that time, the air consolidator business was starting to die death by 1,000 cuts. In addition to that, in 2000 was the advent of the big online agencies: Orbitz, Travelocity, Priceline, Expedia, all these guys. And that has evolved to the point now where Expedia and Priceline own all of the others. And so one of them has all of these folks on Kayak, and one of the other ones has on Trivago. So when you go in there and you see 6 or 7 that have the same pricing, you go, how's that happening? Well, it's just a different channel. They own them all. Okay. So our business model changed in about 2007, I guess. And that was to a host agency, which is what we are today. To give you the background on that, in 1995, the airlines stopped paying commission on air tickets to the travel business. And the travel agents, that's how they made their living.
Mhm.
So if you weren't prepared for it, you were in big trouble. So our skip from International Air Consolidator to host agency was very easy. At that time, there was 34,000 brick and mortar agencies. You couldn't drive past a strip center without finding a travel agency in it. Today, we're below 13,000 brick and mortar agencies. And that's not the big problem. The big problem is that that agency, if you find one, has 8 to 10 desks sitting at it, but only 1 to 2 agents. Most of the agents have gone out of business, died off, flipping hamburgers, doing whatever else they want to do. Their alternative has been, because of the loss of that commission stream from the airlines, is they couldn't afford their brick and mortar. They were having difficulty on affording their licensing and their bonding. So hence the host agency concept. You would leave, come under our wing, and it's basically you sell your sphere of influence or expand it out from there, and you get the larger percent of the commission that's earned. So that's the business that we're in today. Everything was great until the pandemic hit. At that time, we had about 1,100 agents, all working from home, owning their own business. And this was all in the 50 US states. When the pandemic hit, we know what happened. We're now building back. We're now at about 500 agents after the last April, when that's kind of when the travel business kind of came back to life. Before that, you had no supply and you had no demand. You had no way to get there, and nobody was open to accept you from the hotel side. So we're now in the rebuilding process from that. And at this point, I'm going to give you my opinion that we've got about 80% of the agents that are out there now are home-based and under a host agent. So good luck finding one of those brick and mortar agencies out there, because they've been killed by the progression of the industry. You know, the pioneers always take the arrows. So that's kind of what we do from there.
All right. You already answered the question, what makes your business unique, unless you want to add to that, John. Why do you think what makes your business unique?
Not really. The unique part of it, I guess, is that anyone that comes under any host, they own their own business, and they don't have to do all the bonding requirements. They don't have to do all the licensing requirements. The biggest piece of it is education. You have to learn. The largest loss that the travel business experienced is what we call the old war horses. They've been around for 50 years. They've been to 75 countries. They've got extremely great amounts of knowledge, as in, okay, when you go to Cancun, you don't go to this location and you don't turn down this alley where there's a lot of shops. You know, they can take you down that granular a level. And those that have gone out of business will never get that knowledge, that level back.
So the question that I typically ask about what do you attribute your growth to? What we might do is expand it to the various organizations you've built over the years. So you think about some of your secrets to success on growth, John. What would you like to share with the listeners?
The number one thing that I would say is, as you get employees in, you don't violate this principle, and that's NATO. And people think of NATO, well, it's the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, you know, defense of Europe type situation. Well, I use it in a little bit different context. It's NATO, so no action, talk only. I mean, you can talk about stuff, but you've got to put the action element to it. And whether it's in sales, whether it's in marketing, whether it's actually building your infrastructure, your IT. But in reality, those starting into the travel agency business, it's a very low bar to entry from the standpoint of cost. When you're not dealing with brick and mortar rent, when you're not dealing with the bonding, the licensing, all of those costs, because we're covering those, we're teaching you, so you're not out there alone, but you've got your own business. You know, whether it's you're selling to your family, your neighbors, you're going to your church for groups, whatever you're doing from there, you've always got to keep moving. Just don't talk about it, get up and go do it.
Very good. So true. Actions speak louder than words.
There you go.
If you had to start from square one, what would you do differently?
Uh, I would probably invest more time in educating myself, especially in the technology area. It's not even how to do it, it's what exists out there. Back 40 years ago, the only technology was the airlines, what's called the GDS system. We had all the information, you had none of it. Today, you actually have more than we do. The GDS systems are kind of legacy, uh, but you just go to the internet. You look at the big online agencies that came up in 2000, 2001. They went in and took all of the easy stuff. And by that, what I mean is just an air seat from Houston to Dallas, renting a hotel in New York for 3 nights. Uh, Anything that's a little more difficult, you want the warmth of the human voice. You want the touch of the experience of somebody that's there. It's like when you go down to Jamaica, people go, well, I want to go in town into Montego Bay. No, that's a bad idea. And we call it your compound. You go stay in the compound, you got everything there, it's all inclusive, and just have a great time. And if you get the hankering that you just got to go out, okay, go to the concierge desk at the hotel and go on an organized tour so they know where to go and not where to go.
Yes, for sure. So, as an employer, what have been your biggest learnings employing people over the years, John?
I guess it's, the two things. One, you have to educate not only your employee, but you have to teach your employee how to educate their clientele or their customers. And you really don't want any customers. You want clients. You want them to come back to you because it costs 4 times as much to dig up a new customer as it does to service a client that's going to come back to you. So that's probably the most important thing in this is to educate yourself, and then you educate your employees from there. So that's probably the main tip that I would put out there.
It's a great one, by the way. So what are the qualities that you look for in your employees?
Someone that is motivated, okay, they're excited about it. And travel is a product that actually sizzles, and it's got all of the things. I mean, you don't have to carry an inventory. I mean, if you're selling water filters, you got to have an inventory of that. Your inventory is in your head and your knowledge, and especially your experience if you've traveled somewhere. Like in my office, I do very little of the actual travel work. I'm more the big picture guy, but I've been to Africa 7 times on safari. It's my favorite place in the world for a long trip. And by long, I mean 10 days to 2 weeks. On the opposite side of that, my favorite place in the world is Costa Rica for a shorter vacation, like for a week. I've been to Costa Rica 27 times and always to something different. It's a very small country, but it is an unbelievably rich country in almost anything you can do.
And speaking of travel, in general, how do you balance the needs of your business versus your personal life? What have you learned over the years?
I've not done a great job at that, mainly because travel and my business, my business is my play. It's my passion. I love doing it. That's why when I flunked retirement, I only lasted a year and came back into it, and with a different segment of opportunity. Uh, the good thing about this is my wife uh, runs the business from a day-to-day operation technology standpoint. She's 20 years younger than I am. She's also my what do I want to call it? My succession plan. When someone comes and says, "Well, I want to be a travel agent, but why should I come under you? You're not going to live very long. You're an old guy." And I go, "Yeah." I said, "Just a second." I said, "Honey, come here." I said, "You see this one standing behind me? This one knows 5 times what I do about running it, and she's 20 years younger. Any other questions?" And that usually satisfies everybody right there.
Quite good, John. Last question for today is, what are some of the common misconceptions about running and building and owning a business?
the first misconception, I think, is that it's got a low barrier to entry for anything. Okay. And you're gonna be the boss, you're gonna be the owner. Well, that's great being the boss. Nobody's gonna tell you what to do, but you've got to have the experience and the savvy and the learning ability to go not as much what to do, but what not to do. Okay. How are you going to fail? How many different ways can you fail? Coming in undercapitalized. I mean, whatever business you go into, you have to evaluate it and go, okay, what's my capital requirement here? Like if you're going to go drive for one of the ride services, you've got to have a fairly decent car or you're going to get bad reviews and nobody's going to use you and the company's eventually going to get rid of you. You know, in the travel business, the barrier to entry is, do you have a computer? Do you have access to the internet? And do you have a phone? And that's it. Other than that, you can do this. One of the new programs we're putting out is for a traveling nomad. You see so many people that go, I want to go spend 4 months in Argentina and 3 months in Thailand. You know what? As long as you got a US bank account where we can send money to after you earn commission, you can go do this anywhere you want to. And the key is your consistency in the air. You get the clientele so that they trust you. So those are some key things that you got to consider, whatever business you're looking to go into.
It's
And
true.
sometimes it's not fun to be the boss. You know, if you're not doing well and it's time to make payroll and you've got agents working under you or people working for you, they want to get paid on time.
Yeah, they may like you, but they won't stay around if they don't get paid.
That's right. You got to treat them fair and square.
Exactly. So, any final words for the folks?
The only thing I would say is whatever your passion is, follow it. The one thing that I think that has come clear from the pandemic, which was, you know, the biggest set of arrows that the travel business took, was that everybody needs a side gig, no matter what it is. You need a side gig to be prepared for it, because it's going to happen again. Whether it's, you know, Taiwan and China go to war, whether it's another pandemic because we have the bird flu hit us, whatever it is, it's like my chief worries, like for the semiconductor industry, and I do a fair amount of stock work, has been that the Chinese potentially invading Taiwan. And 2 days ago, we have an earthquake that could have put all the semiconductor out of business. So you never know when the bad stuff's going to hit. So you need a side gig, you need a side hustle, you need to be prepared to do what you need to do.
Thank you. And again, that type of wisdom comes with having gone around the sun a few times. So,
well, you know, I've been around the sun 72 times.
Well done, John.
Thank
you very much for pouring into the business community. Greatly appreciated. And looking forward to seeing what y'all do in the next 10, 20 years, you and your wife.
All right, you're welcome.